Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. He's speaking to us from South Florida. Welcome back to the show, Rick.
Thanks for inviting me on, Jim. It is always a pleasure.
Rick, gold seems like it just can't stop going higher even if it wants to.
Yeah, you got to love it. You only wonder why it took so darn long, but I'm particularly thrilled with silver. Silver has finally launched, and it's going to be working hard to close the gap in that gold-silver ratio, which went out of sight. But silver, over the last few days, jumped a peak, what I call an external peak, that was created in the year 2013, and that generated a very powerful impulsive leg on the long-term chart in silver. So it means that any pullback in silver, no matter how severe, is going to represent a buying opportunity. So let's just say bullion is finally in gear.
Are there any physical metal shortages right now?
You always hear about it, and of course, if that's not enough to satisfy you, just go out there and try to buy some gold or silver rounds, or even bags of junk. There's at the grassroots level, there's just not much supply, and that's been an anomaly for so long that it really gets the hackles up of bullion bugs, because they see the price being suppressed by the forces of evil and darkness, and they know that demand is there. So finally, physical demand is in the process of overwhelming paper supply.
So what does that mean in the long run? Prices go up even higher?
No, I don't think we've got much room for higher prices. I think that any price rise in pretty much anything is an illusion right now. We're going into a depression. We've got 40 million unemployed, and things are relatively cheery now. We haven't even gotten a proper sense of what things are going to look like in the winter, when all the restaurants, for one, that are managing to just barely stay alive with patio service, well, they're not going to have that. So this is going to look like George Washington's winter in Valley Forge. It's going to be a very, very tough slog. And I think it's just great, that all the idiots throwing other people's money at the stock market see the relative handful of companies that are going up as being capable of carrying the global economy on their backs. But I saw somewhere where if you stripped out the 10 mega cap stocks from the S&P 500, that they have effectively gone nowhere since March. So it's the delusion really about economic recovery has never been more powerful.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after the break.
Ackerman Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Ackerman's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at ackermanresources.com.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Ackerman, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, the Fed has just extended its emergency loan program to the end of the year. Is that going to help?
Yeah, like how sustainable is that? You just keep writing checks for trillions of dollars, and as we've discussed before, it just goes into a deflationary sinkhole because at the business level, nobody's expanding, and they're just sort of marking time and socking a lot of that money away for a rainy day. And it's the same thing with Joe Sixpack. It's not like he's going out and buying a Cadillac Escalade or a bass fishing boat. The money is being used essentially to keep his landlord solvent for another month or two. So whatever trillions they're shooting, the larger deflationary juggernaut essentially created by debt that is so much bigger than just a few $1 trillion. We're talking about more like $1 quadrillion that's been amassed, piled up as debt against supposed collateral in the derivatives market. So deflationary forces are much more powerful than anything the Fed can throw at the problem to create the illusion that we're not sinking.
Is this wasted money then that's being thrown around by the federal government?
No, I wouldn't call it wasted. It's helping some people to survive, really, but we shouldn't have any illusions that it's going to create sustain. No, I don't think anybody really thinks it's going to create growth. I think the most even the delusionals could think right now is that if we can just keep doling out trillions of dollars from every 6 months, that it will sustain the economy for long enough until the economy comes back. The problem with that theory is the economy is never coming back. It will never be anywhere near what it was. So, except for those 10 companies whose shares are going bananas.
Now, are you seeing a phenomena in the U.S. where people are moving out of expensive cities into smaller towns because now they can work from home?
They're not moving, they're fleeing. They're absolutely abandoning the cities. And when we talked also about the hit to capital infrastructure that's going to take place. That represents essentially a deflationary juggernaut. And you can work the numbers in a small way and say, well, that there's so many tens, 20 scores of billions of dollars worth of shopping mall properties that are now worthless. But you can ratchet up the degree there and say the same thing is going to happen to the capital infrastructure of cities. The subway systems are obsolete now. But city life, which, to take the best example, New York, it's the density of it that makes city life worth living. And in the case of New York, anything that was fun and enjoyable and that made the very high costs and the challenges of living in New York City worth it, those amenities, those pleasures no longer exist. And I can say the little resort town where I grew up, Margate, New Jersey. It's on the same island as Atlantic City. They're having an absolute a crazy boom in real estate, and it's all Philadelphia New Yorkers thinking, what could be a better place to live than a charming little seaside town. So the flight has really begun in earnest, although a lot of people are still stuck in New York, not being able to afford $8 million seashore homes. So, but it's going to happen. And, there was a good story in the Journal the other day about how New York officially reopened back in June, just that nobody's returned. And, of course, that's one thing. All of the office space, all the office towers in New York are now obsolete. You're going to have to write that off, and I'm not sure what you're going to turn some of those huge buildings into. But they're even harder to convert than old movie theaters. But nobody's doing business in New York anymore. And of course, the trickle down is huge. It's not even a trickle. It's a massive wave that destroys all of the ancillary services that take place at street level. So all the restaurants, all the street vendors, everything that happens in New York has been absolutely slammed. Because workers just aren't coming into the city. And we've got the realtors trying to paint paint a happy face on that by saying, well, people will come back because we're discovering that they really need the energy of that environment where people come face to face. I say bull. That's really just happy talk from realtors. But the reality is that most companies are going to say, screw it. We don't need to be paying, $200-300 a square foot rent to maintain offices when we've seen how well we function without them. So, New York, I hate to say this, but, and they've survived a lot of things in the past, but they're dead in the water this time.
With companies having people work at home, some have found that, of course, if you have a creative workforce, you're trying to make things with your minds working together. That works better if everybody's in the same room or near each other spitting ideas around. But if you're just doing solid number crunching or collecting accounts, that can be done anywhere on the planet.
Well, to put the most cynical spin on it that I possibly could, all those creative types that have better synergy when they're together, they're creating a lot of garbage as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you got to think of the finished product. And if the finished product is anything digital, any application that I use, I can tell you that it's garbage. I spend hundreds of hours of tech support every year with the creative designers of these various interfaces. So all software stinks. And even the biggest companies like Amazon, it took my ex, she still hasn't resolved it. They basically locked her out of her account and no one seems to know why or how to get her out of it. So I'm no longer a believer in creative synergy, because when you have it, all you get is like Disney animated features. And, so what's the value of it?
So we can say goodbye to the workplaces that have the foosball tables and video games and pool tables and stuff.
Yeah, that's all going by the wayside. I think San Francisco, the Bay Area, has to get repriced considerably. I know I was surprised one time on Valencia Street to go into a little hole in the wall and discovered that they had a truffled hamburger for $65. So that's all going to stop. That's going to end really. And, you're going to have a real shakeout in the Bay Area. The lockdown in California has been pretty stringent, and people that I know who live there they're rethinking what's so wonderful about San Francisco and the Bay Area. And of course, even when you bring back some of the core businesses there, the streets have fallen into such a state that it's like, who the heck wants to live in San Francisco? And I lived there for 22 years myself, and it was a great town, but no more.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after the break.
Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, do you have any feelings about what's going to happen with the U.S. presidential election, which is under 100 days away?
Trump all the way. You can bet the pass line with Trump, and all the polls are wrong. You can sense that in your bones, really. It's not like America isn't there watching these statues topple and places like virtually all of the Democratic Party run cities crumbling. So to think that more Democrats are going to get elected to give us more of the same is absolutely absurd. And even someone who should know better, like Karl Rove, he's statistically splitting hairs. He's looking at some of the blue collar states like Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and he's trying to make the case that these states are in play. In fact, the working man started to desert the Democratic Party 50 years ago when they got kind of fed up with sending their sons to Vietnam to die while all the campus the protesters were dodging the draft. But since then, we've had a whole new slew of reasons for the working man and woman, and I'm talking about not just white men and women, but people of all working stiffs, black, white, all races, colors, and creeds. They have every reason to abandon the Democratic Party. I think the idea that Biden somehow stands for jobs, or he stands for this, or he stands for that, is absurd. You do get a kind of seems plausible to me, the idea that Biden is going to quietly step aside. When you watch a guy, you understand that he's not competent to hold. He couldn't hold down a job as dog catcher, really. The guy can't string 3 cogent sentences together, and it's not an accident that the Democrats are really resisting the idea of getting Biden out on a debate stage with Trump. Somehow that's not going to happen, and it may not be simply because they've rejected it for some stupid reason, but because Biden eventually will not be the candidate. I don't know if I give you an even bet on that, but I think it's probably not a bad bet that Biden's going to say, well, I'm just not, whatever, I'm not feeling well today, and he's going to step aside. I think that's maybe understood within the Democratic Party. And, some of the rumors suggest that Hillary and Obama are going to step in to fill the void, which I don't think there's a net gain there. Well, there may be, because I don't know who the heck would vote for Biden, especially when you see him. If you've seen the actual Biden live from his basement or wherever he's operating out of. So I think maybe the Democrats would pick up a few votes with Hillary and Obama, but not enough to make the difference, not enough to make people forget what they've seen on their television screens and read in the news over the last couple months.
Well, after Trump selected, what happens to all these people who have been rioting?
Well, if it's possible to, I hate to put it this way, but the Trump hatred is going to get ratcheted up by to a higher level. And of course, we're already at the level where we've got rioting in the streets, and I think that the only logical ratcheting that could occur would be in the direction of civil war. So I think that when Trump gets reelected and his enemies get even angrier, it can only spill over it can only turn into a civil war, a shooting war. And it's pretty predictable as to where the shooting might happen. I see a group of Antifa thugs coming out one night to try to topple a statue in Boise, Idaho, or Helena, Montana, and they get caught by the militia there. And of course, that when Antifa starts dialing 911 for Mayday, that help is not going to arrive. So they'll become martyrs. And I think that's going to happen, and it'll probably happen in more than one city. But when you look at the red-blue map, blue cannot really be, or red can't be attacked. It's really the heartland. So that what's going to happen is that the Civil War Reds are going to wind up trapped in the cities. All of them will become the same sort of hellhole that Chaz experiment did in Seattle. So, but I think a logical course that the Civil War could take would be a siege. And if you think about it, the food supply all comes from the red state heartland, and so many things get trucked into the cities. But if you had a coalition of, let's say, truckers, farmers, some manufacturers, meat packers, you could easily starve out the cities. And I think there's a pretty good chance that that's the way it's going to happen. I'm not quite sure when the losers, the blue state the blue strips, the cities, sue for peace, what's going to happen after that? We could hope that decent people will reclaim the schools, the school system, and will bring things around. But let's say the the cultural enemies of America are so deeply entrenched right now that it could take a decade or two before we work our way out of the hole. So even though Red is going to win the shooting war pretty quickly by laying siege, I don't expect everything in America to be great overnight. It's going to take time.
Will foreign countries try to take advantage of that?
No, they won't, because we are still armed to the teeth, and we've seen, Russia may have collapsed in a demographic and sociological sense and economically, but they still command a lot of fear and respect, and of course the U.S., I don't think anybody's going to be taking advantage of it. They do so at their own peril. You could say China could take advantage, but how? They own a lot of U.S. debt, and I don't think they're too keen on toppling the U.S. so that debt becomes worthless. So in a way, we're all sort of tied together. We've got to do business with each other, even though under Trump we've become a lot more wary about how we do business with the Chinese.
Rick, what's your overall outlook for the stock market right now?
I think the psychosis is near an end. The market is sort of like the football player who's got a fractured tibia and he doesn't even know it. He's so shot up with steroids that he goes out there on the field and he turns a hairline fracture into a compound fracture. So pretty soon, people are going to see that bone sticking out of the shin and realize what the problem is. The stock market is having the most, it's in a complete state of psychosis right now, and it's incapable of correcting simply because of all the force feeding of stimulus. But even the stimulus ain't going to stimulate much because most people being exhorted to stimulate or simply socking it away for an even rainier day. There's virtually no capital investment going on, and all the things that count, all the things that would actually stimulate economic growth aren't happening. So the multi-trillion-dollar stimulus packages, that's dead money. It'll keep some people, some landlords and some workers alive for another couple of months, but it's not even going to sustain us until growth returns, simply because growth ain't returning. So I just, you begin to, nobody thinks that what's happening in the stock market is sustainable. And even the most shameless bulls are feeling a little bit, not remorseful really. They're never remorseful when stocks are going higher, but there's a sense that it's kind of a civilizational embarrassment that stocks continually, that they go up in the face of an economy that's, global economy that's slipping into depression.
Rick, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Always a pleasure, Jim. I hope I didn't put too much doom and gloom out there, but I just feel like a realistic picture right now is necessarily a grim one.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website rickackerman.com. If you have any questions for Rick or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howestreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.